Hey everyone, this is Mason, and you're listening to Herb Rally. Today's episode is another edition of the Herbalist Hour, and this time I'm joined by Corinna Wood. So, Corinna is an herbalist and a mentor in the wise woman tradition. In this conversation, we chat about her journey to herbalism, her mentors, slowing down in winter. We chat a lot about self-care, the year's spiral, rituals for imbolc, and a whole lot more. So, big thanks to Corinna for joining me on the show. Also want to say a huge thank you to our presenting sponsor, and that is, of course, Oshala Farm. If you're looking to purchase organically grown herbs that were grown right here in the U.S., look no further than Oshala Farm at oshalafarm.com. They grow and sell over 80 medicinal and culinary plant species right there on their beautiful Southern Oregon farm, which you can purchase in dried, cut and sifted form. So if you're in the need for some medicinal herbs of the highest potency, check out Oshala Farm at oshalafarm.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out their other offerings, such as herbal tea blends, spices, elixirs, and they even have organic hydrosol that they create right there on their farm. When you support Oshala Farm, you're also helping support Herb Rally because they're our presenting sponsor for the show. So if you end up making a purchase, please let them know you found out about them through Herb Rally. We really appreciate it. Also, big thanks to our Herb Rally Schoolhouse members. You know who you are. If you'd like to learn more about the Herb Rally Schoolhouse, simply go to herbrally.com/schoolhouse. Basically, there's a bunch of classes in the member area. There's a private Facebook group, herbal community discounts, including Oshala Farm, and it's one of the best ways you can help support us. It's only $10 a month, but if you'd like to try your first 30 days for free, simply use coupon code PODCAST at checkout. So one more time, huge thanks to Corinna for joining me on the show, Oshala Farm for sponsoring the show, and to our Herb Rally Schoolhouse members for your support as well. That's going to do it for my rambling today. Hope you enjoyed today's episode with Corinna Wood. Talk to you soon.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm really excited to have on Corinna Wood. Welcome to the show, Corinna.
Hi, so glad to be here, Mason.
We've had a few collabs over the years, so it's nice to sit down with you and get to know you a little bit more. A lot of times when I start these shows off, I like to get to know a little bit about the herbalist's background. So let's start maybe near the beginning. What was a young Corinna like?
Well, I, from teen or preteen on, pretty much, was an activist. And pretty much the only place I felt safe was in nature. So I had grown up on the nuclear freeze peace movement with my mother. Actually, after my parents got divorced, my father worked at the nuclear submarine base in the nuclear submarine capital of the world, Groton, Connecticut, doing mathematical research for the submarines. And then after we got divorced, literally on the other side of the Thames River, my mother took us and really introduced me to political activism and the peace movement. Every time one of those was christened and released, one of the submarines, there were activists coming in from all over the country and the world and singing and speaking. And so that really lit a fire. And her maiden name is Tuinman, which is Dutch for gardener. She was born in Holland during World War II. And they actually, her mother, the month of her birth would be April. And that's when her mother would be out harvesting the nettles.
Wow.
It was actually the winter of hunger that she was born. And of course, it was extremely intense. And my grandmother says that's why the Netherlands is called Nederlands, is because of the nettle, which is so abundant there. So I think it was just in my blood from even before I was in my mother's womb. And so she really brought that passion, of course, to the peace movement, and also was very active in the women's movement. I really consider myself a product of the women's liberation movement. I was born in 1971, and as I got older and really recognized, even just in my early 20s, I had a lot of healing to do. Emotionally, physically, I had eating disorder and really a lot of emotional and physical impacts of the stress from complex trauma, from complex PTSD and childhood experiences and events in my father's home. So
Yeah.
I turned to nature, and to the plants was like my natural place to go for healing. And then over the decades, that's also evolved from primarily working with the herbs to primarily turning also that lens of herbalism and nature's lens toward inner growth and healing for like the medicine chest for the mind, heart, and soul.
Definitely. And we'll probably get to this later. And I know you view self-healing as like a spiral, and it kind
Yeah.
of works its way towards the middle, starting with like, say, the physical, like movement and nourishment and so on. And then you're kind of working towards the middle with like, say, self-love and
Mm-hmm.
relationships and whatnot. And I'm just kind of curious. You mentioned your mom. She sounds like a badass, first of all, but I'm kind of curious. Does she consider herself an herbalist, or is it just kind of like a lifestyle?
It is a lifestyle, and the house where I was born, my parents were renting a place that had a lot of like old fruit trees, and they were just growing huge gardens. So I really feel that I and all of us are standing on the shoulders of the generations that came before us, of
Sure.
course, and that back to the land movement really seeded something. And although it was my study later of herbalism that really got her inspired, where now she actually has a beautiful nettles patch. Of course, it loves her compost pile, so it's like on the edge of her compost pile and beyond. And actually in another place spot down on her driveway where I sometimes go to harvest. Um, so yeah,
I never heard that Netherlands was related to nettles.
well, that's what my grandmother says.
Okay, well, I'll buy it. I'm just gonna say that to everybody moving.
Nederlands.
Okay, I
Yep.
love it. Well, who have been some of your herbal mentors along the way?
Yeah, so let's see, decided, I actually, when I came of age, I decided to take some time off between high school and college. I was admitted to, I was on an Ivy League track, and I deferred admission at Brown University and decided I really, instead of activism, I made a decision that I wanted to focus on building the alternatives.
Yeah.
And so I started visiting intentional communities around the country. I was really looking for like, people who were growing their own food and who were working with gender equality. And so that kind of took me on to a path where I decided that what I wanted to study was somewhere between like sustainable agriculture, holistic healing, and it really wasn't available at the Ivy League schools. So I I ended up doing independent study at Evergreen State College. First, just before that, I had been living at River Farm for a while out in Deming, Washington. And they were showing me like, look, we're weeding this lamb's quarter and this chickweed to grow the broccoli and stuff, but you can actually eat it. And I was just like, oh my God. Because I'd always kind of had this idea that if things fell apart, like when I was a kid, I thought like if things fell apart, my family will be okay. We'll just eat nuts and berries. I don't know where I came up with that. I don't think my family actually would have known how to find, but that was my idea. And so then when I started to hear that that was like a real possibility, it really, yeah, lit a fire.
Totally.
Jewel weed had been like an early one when I was a child at a nature science thing, and like they put the jewel weed under the water and seeing the little droplets ball up and make the leaf shiny, and that's why it's a jewel. I was just like, whoa. So yeah, there was just people along the way there. And then when I was doing independent study at Evergreen, I was with a group of young women who were all interested in herbalism. You couldn't really get like classes directly, but I was doing a lot of botany, biology, chemistry classes, and then we were doing some of our own independent study on herbs. And I know I would always show up, like, we were like, okay, let's make herbal oils today. So they would all come, Olympia, Washington, Radiance is the store. So they would have like some dried herbs from Radiance. And I'd be like, I have some plantain leaves from my doorstep. Like I just like picked them fresh. And so from the beginning, I was just really drawn to working with the weeds and the fresh plants that just grow where I live. And a woman in my group had heard about eagle song. So this is over 30 years ago. And we went to do a plant walk with her, and I was just like, yes, somebody to like take me by the hand and like show me, because I was already waking up every day like, okay, what plants can I find to eat is where I started, because that would keep me motivated, but also to use as food and medicine. And so she really introduced me to the wise woman tradition, and then to Susan Weed. And those two are really have been my biggest herbal mentors.
Deming, Washington, Olympia, Washington, and then Eagle Song. I didn't realize you had such a Northwest connection.
Yeah.
You didn't grow up there though, correct?
No, I grew up in Connecticut, so I had gone like as far as I could across the country, and now I'm back in the mountains of North Carolina. So
I love that. Yeah, I'm very fond of Eagle Song's work, and of course, Susan has been very influential to me as well. I consume nourishing infusions almost every day, thanks to Susan and the Wise Woman Way. So,
indeed,
I actually would
yes.
love to hear you kind of define the Wise Woman tradition, if you would be willing. And did Susan Weed kind of like start that or spearhead that, or did she get that from a
Yeah.
lineage of somewhere else?
Well, she's given voice in our times to the wise woman tradition, and as she says, it is a timeless, throughout the ages. It's really a tradition that's existed all along and has rarely been talked or written about. And it's the three things that I think of just off the top are local plants, deep nourishment, and self-love.
Mm.
It's an earth-based, woman-centered approach.
And that's kind of how you carry forth with your teaching, correct? Awesome.
Yeah, so and then I've taken the lens of the wise woman tradition with this earth-based, woman-centered, and kind of the spiral, actually, of the light and dark. It's really very much about embracing the natural cycles and the moon and the earth, and so I've taken that lens and turned it towards our own inward growth and healing, really looking at how we can nourish ourselves from the roots up through that embracing of the light and the dark spiral, and valuing ourselves as women, and really approaching nourishment as the primary filter for health, both physically and emotionally.
Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy. Yeah, I'm not going to get this 100% verbatim, but I remember reading on your bio or your about page, you said you love springtime and greens and plants and all that and the sunlight, but I want to say your favorite season is actually the current season we're in right now, which is wintertime. So what is it about winter that you love so much?
Yeah. Yeah, that time from like the Halloween time until imbolc. So Halloween is the halfway point between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice, also known as Samhain. And then imbolc, also known as Groundhog's Day today or Candlemas, is the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. And so, yeah, this window of time over winter solstice and the 6 weeks prior and the 6 weeks after, which it's about 6 weeks to those markers, is the time of really turning our focus inward and toward self-care and nourishment. And so it's just like as the plants and the trees are doing all around us, the perennials are all sending their energy down to the roots below the ground. Nature is resting and healing, and the animals are hibernating, and we have that natural draw to do so ourselves.
Yeah, I was telling you pre-show, I forced myself to not do any interviews during December, although I did cheat. I think I did
Yeah.
maybe one.
Yeah.
But still, like it was so
Yeah.
nice because after doing, 2 or 3 interviews per week, it was really nice to just kind of reset and focus on nourishing myself. So, um,
Absolutely.
why
Good
is it
for you.
important? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it feels great. And I thought I was going to be a lot more rusty, but I'm feeling like we're having a great conversation already.
Yeah,
So
thank you. This is so
yeah,
fun.
I love it. Well, I know you're about to do a big podcast circuit. You're going to be on the Mountain Rose Herb Show soon, so be sure to tune in, dear listener, to Herbal Radio as well to catch Corinna there as well. But Corinna, why is it important to follow your internal call to slow down and return to your roots during winter?
Yeah, there's so much in our society that tells us that we should be outward all the time. And if you were to overlay the seasons of the year, like with the moon cycles, we have like the full moon, which would line up with the summertime and summer solstice, and then down to the winter time, and winter solstice would be like the dark moon. And so it's like we're supposed to be in that like full moon time all the time. And so part of what
Mm.
I've found so powerful and now seen with my students' lives over and over is how looking through that natural lens and overlaying it with our own human needs allows us to give ourselves permission to be all of who we are all around that moon cycle. And there's 8 different phases, but with yeah, the needs that are met in that dark moon, winter solstice kind of time of year are the rest and the replenishment. And those are just natural human needs. The needs that are met in the summer solstice, like full moon time, are contribution, self-expression, appreciation, acknowledgement, which are also natural, normal human needs. So even just embracing that it's okay to have needs is a big step in itself. And then recognizing like, oh, and actually I find that it's helpful for a lot of my students in embracing that to see like, oh, this is all just part of nature and that's within ourselves. And of course, those cycles, we can find ourselves at any time of the year or the month. And certainly every day we're spiraling through the night where we need the rest and replenishment and the midday.
Yeah, so I moved from Oregon to Wisconsin. I'm not sure if you knew that or not. So I'm a
I
Wisconsinite
I
now.
noticed that.
But
Yeah,
it's
it's
been an inter
cold.
it is cold and it's been interesting talking to some of like the herbalists around here. A lot of them do say, like I want to say I was talking to Denise Cusack over in the Madison area, and she said winter is her favorite season as well because you get to rest,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
been really awesome to see the community here in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Mhm.
During the summertime, there's all these like festivals and community gatherings, and everyone's just
Yeah.
really soaking up and enjoying their time outside. And I
Hmm.
think part of the reason it's so lively is because they've been stuck inside for a few months just resting the whole time. So
Totally.
I love that
Yeah, get
cycle.
it
And
while you can.
exactly. And as far as like say if you're working out a lot, one of the best ways to recover is sleep. So it's like the winter time is like our time to just really heal and deeply nourish ourselves. And I'm really starting to embrace that more as I get older.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, speaking of sleep, what are some of the ways you like to support sleep during the winter time?
Yeah. Yeah. So sleep is such a important, as you're saying, just foundation of health. We do most of our healing physically and probably emotionally in our sleep.
Sure.
So, of course, there's herbs, skullcap and passion flower, and also really setting up your life in a way that is giving your body the message that this is the time when we sleep. And so, having regular evening wind down routines. Of course, we hear that we're not supposed to be on screens, and that's very much true. And whatever else we can do to let our bodies release the tension of the day, writing down the things you need to do tomorrow, writing, doing some journaling or reading, taking a hot bath. And then in the night, I love my eye mask. So
Oh,
I'm
wow.
all about that. I really recommend, certainly for ambient light or for being able to stay awake as the sun starts to come up, if you're, depending on your sleep schedule. And I also enjoy sometimes a lavender eye mask, or
Mhm.
I'll tuck a little herb, like I like Tulsi is actually one of my favorites in the summertime. I actually brought in a Tulsi plant this winter so I could have one in my sunroom to keep tucking a little bit under my eye mask when I go to sleep. It's just such a lovely aromatherapy.
I've experimented with the eye mask as well, and I noticed every time I would wear it, it'd like fall off my face. So a hack that I found, dear listener, if you're having the same problem, is I just pull a beanie over my eyes, and that works really well. Typically, I like to have a blackout curtains, which I think probably
Mhm.
functions similarly, but
Mhm.
yeah, the beanie is in a pinch works for me.
Mhm.
Anything else you wanted to say about supporting sleep?
Um, Another thing that I have found helpful at times, and I've moved in and out of them, is music
Mm.
or guided meditation. I like Bella Ruth Nappersteck's sleep meditation,
Mm.
or there's one that's binaural beats,
Oh yeah.
where it's syncing up the two sides of your brain. And they have like ear pajamas, which have like flat headphones, so you can like
Oh, that's
sleep
cool.
with them. Yeah.
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 You mentioned journaling or even writing down the list for the next day's activities, and maybe I misheard that, but I'm just kind of curious, is the reason one would do that so maybe they get it on paper so then they don't have to like have the circular thoughts while they're trying to actually fall asleep?
Yeah. Yeah. Or when you wake up in the middle of the night. Yeah. So I actually have two pieces. I have my planning book, where I write down the things that I need to do. And then I have my journal where I can journal my thoughts and feelings. And so whichever combination I feel drawn to on a given evening, sometimes it's just one or the other. Um, and I do also like to do some meditation, just real simple, even when I wake up in the middle of the night, to go through my chakras. I start at my feet and just do some breathing there, and then up through the energy centers of the body. And I find that really helpful and relaxing for getting back to sleep, and for keeping your mind away from the things you need to do or whatever, which is another thing that those guided visualizations and meditations, can really help with, or even the music.
For sure. Well, how about supporting the immune system during wintertime? You got any tips for us?
Sure. Yeah, of course, echinacea and poke actually is one of my favorites. It's also an immune herb, probably more on that than we'll have time for today, but
Sure.
if I could include a link, I have a
Yeah,
blog
that'd be
article
awesome.
I have a real popular blog article on poke. Um,
I've never really used poke, so I would love
yeah,
to check that out.
Yeah, you do need to be cautious and
Mhm.
like take care with the dosage. So there's a few things to know. But it's also it's the one it's so abundant, and I use it like a lot of herbalists use golden seal instead. I use poke, and I find it very powerful.
Boy.
Um yeah, and then there's burdock and dandelion and yellow dock are like good deep roots, tonics for over the winter, tinctures, blend. I also love to make broths, which you can do as a bone broth. I usually do beef bones. You can also do a vegetarian version without the bones, because the herbal and operative part, herbally, is that I put in reishi and astragalus so they can really brew slowly, over hours or days. And I also love to add in chaga, which is a
Mm.
mushroom, also really deep immunity. The reishi and astragalus are just really rebuilding immunity on a deep level, like you're getting down to the bone marrow level. I'll sometimes
Totally.
throw in some elecampane root into the broth, if
Oh,
I'm
nice.
wanting a little extra lung support. And then you also put in onions, oh, and a little vinegar. It helps to get you're all about this, Mason, the
Totally. I'm
marrow
like I
out of the
do the reishi,
bones.
chaga, all the above. Yep.
Oh, really? All
Astragalus.
of
Oh
these? Oh,
yeah.
this is
Oh
so
yeah.
cool. Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. Oh, that's so
I'm
cool.
nerding out with you right now, Karina. I love this.
Yeah, like I've got a pot down on the stove, and
Totally.
for lunch, I'm gonna be ladling out a mug of bone broth and
Totally.
an herbal broth, and put a little bit of sweet white miso in there, and just amazing. And the onions add like quercetin for the lungs, and of course they have all these immune support as well. I sometimes throw in some seaweed. So for the listeners, if you have like any one of those herbs, just throw it in. Like you don't need to have all of them. Like you might eventually nerd out at this level that Mason and I are, but even just yeah, any of those medicinal mushrooms or herbs are just so nourishing and to have over the winter. And so I'll simmer that on the stove with just plain water for like a couple hours a day, and then I'll pour it out, put some in the fridge in a mason jar, do it like refill it with water. I usually do it 3 different times. You can also freeze the broth. It freezes really well, but it keeps in the fridge for like a couple weeks. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, I have a goal to never buy store-bought broth of any sort. There's no reason to, and I've even noticed, like, say on the back of some organic broths at the store, they'll still even throw in sugar, which is
Oh my
mind-boggling
gosh,
to me.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's such an inexpensive way to nourish yourself at home, and like food as medicine.
amen. I'll even do the miso bit that you do sometimes as well.
I love it. I'll be thinking of you.
Heck yeah, yeah, no doubt. Awesome. Oh, and I also wanted to bring up the elecampane tip. I've never tried that out. Does it maybe you're just doing a little bit, but does it alter the
Just a little
flavor?
bit, because
Yeah, totally.
it's kind of strong flavored. Yes,
Absolutely.
so
I was
that's
wondering about
that's a
that.
good tip.
Even with the reishi,
Just
I
a
don't throw in
pinch.
too much reishi mushroom, just enough
Uh-huh.
to get the medicinal benefits without giving too
Hmm.
much of that bitterness. But I love a
Overpowering.
strong, right, I love a strong like reishi decoction. I'm all about that, but yeah, I'm pretty sparing with it in the bone broth. But awesome. Well, why don't we transition a little bit? I know we wanted to talk about self-care, which has been huge for me recently. I've got a whole regimen that I love sticking to,
Mm,
and it's been absolutely building and nourishing for me. So, I
awesome.
guess why is self-care important? And a second part to that question, why is self-care not selfish?
Yeah, right. Self-care is not selfish. Good for you to
Yeah.
be really, yeah, turning attention to that and sticking to that. this comes back to what I was touching on with the cycles of nature and how those reflect our innate human needs. And, we're taught that we should be like productive all the time and nice and smiling and pretty and out there. And it's like, no, it's also, we have to have those times of retreat and rest and going down into our deep, dark, and difficult places and really allowing ourselves to feel. There's so much spiritual bypassing in today's society in a lot of different forms of the like, you just need to think good thoughts or good vibes only or stay positive. And that can unwittingly contribute to suppressing, denying our range of true, deep emotions and experiences. So I think that's just a really essential part of emotional and physical health is allowing ourselves to be all of who we are. So as far as busting the myth about self-care being selfish, so if you imagine this cycle of the moons and the basic needs that are overlaid on that. So the basic human needs are identified in many fields of psychology, including nonviolent communication and others. And I've taken those lists of needs, reorganized, and overlaid them with the cycles of nature. So the dark moon time with winter solstice is rest. And then the imbolc time with the crescent waxing moon is safety. And then we have respect at spring equinox. And everything's sprouting up. It's like, these girls need a little respect around here. That's what my girl says. Really working with our inner children and inner young ones within is very healing. And then the next is valuing. And then at summer solstice, we're at contribution. So when you can contribute to the world, not from a place of depletion, but from a place of your cup flowing over because your needs for rest, safety, respect, and valuing are met, then you can give your greatest gifts to the world and contribute from a place of your cup flowing over rather than obligation and exhaustion that ultimately depletes and contributes to, a lot of health issues like adrenal exhaustion and thyroid and other issues.
So it actually sounds like it's not selfish at all. It sounds like quite the opposite. It sounds like self-care and self-love and nourishment is almost like your way of being able to give back to the world at the highest degree.
Yeah. And so a lot of times when we talk about needs, we're like, oh no, I shouldn't be needy, or it's selfish to look at my own needs. And so where this is an important mind shift is to recognize that no, from an innate psychological lens, one of the most important human needs is the need for contribution. So the need to contribute to the well-being of others. So yes, when we're attending to our self-care and our innate needs for all the things, including rest and safety, just starting there, then yes, we are naturally, of course, going to want to contribute to making the world a better place. So I'll just put that out for the listeners, even as a reflective question of like, if your needs for rest were met, what would you love to contribute to the world?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just reminiscing on my life, I think there was a very important stage where I was doing a lot of that internal work, but it got to the point where it wasn't the internal work was very important for me, but then I had to eventually come out of my shell to contribute to the world in the way that I'm doing now, and I feel like this is my work, my
Mm-hmm.
contribution. So
Beautiful.
it's absolutely important. It's absolutely important to maintain the self-care that we need so much. And I'm just going to run this by you, Corinna. This is my self-care practice. Tell me if this is ridiculous or not.
Oh, sweet.
So have you ever heard of blue vervain as like
Yeah.
a remedy for folks that create lists a lot?
Oh,
Like the
nice.
okay, yeah. So what I do
I
is
could
on
see
my
that.
yeah, on my phone I have a list of all of these different self-care practices and I try to check each one of them off every day, which
That's
seems
awesome.
seems kind of absurd, but
I don't think it's absurd.
okay,
It
cool. Yeah.
reminds me of a chart that I have worked with, and my students have enjoyed this, where, like back in the paper days,
Yeah.
uh, which still can be nice to externalize it, of, yeah, just like a list, and then every day having a column. And in my system, there was something like I want to do at least one of these couple nourishing foods things a day, or
Mm.
at least one of these couple. So I wasn't necessarily like I had more things on the list than I had to check off every day, but the categories, like something in that category, which is probably
Oh, I
similar to
like
what you're
that.
doing. But yeah.
Yeah, I like the category theme. That's cool. Yeah, I've got like different exercises I like to do, stretches, prayer,
Yes.
nourishing herbal infusions, etc. And it kind of runs the whole gamut. And I know I had a great nourishing day if by the end all of those boxes are checked, and
Yeah.
it works for me. So
Good for you.
I just wanted your take if that was like too type A or something like that, like almost defeating the purpose of a self-care routine. But
No, I love that. And I just want to reflect back to you
yeah.
how it sounds like, from what you're saying, how integrating that in this like systematic way, which is a good fit with your personality and probably with the what you need to be doing with your business,
Yeah.
that integrating it in that way is also allowing you to contribute to the world in all these big ways that you are, while also staying sane and healthy within yourself after having those years you mentioned of really needing that internal focus. It's like now it's not just external, it's both.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. All right, I got Karina's stamp of approval on my system of self-care. Why don't you
Rock
tell,
on.
thank you. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your upcoming seminar? It's called Self-Healing the Wise Woman Way. And I want to say this is available at the time of this release of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Self-Healing the Wise Woman Way is a free seminar that is just in this last week of January as we're moving into the imbolc season. And we're looking at three core principles of self-healing, the wise woman way. And then the second session is a peek at your inner landscape through nature's lens, where I lead you through some activities and exercises with some of the self-reflective type of material that I've just started to touch on here.
Yeah, you
And
go
then
much deeper though.
yes,
Yeah.
and then the last session is navigating your self-healing journey in the context of your relationships.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of juicy stuff in there, and that's, yeah, free. And we'll include a link. So I have also the CorinnaWood.com/herb rally,
Awesome.
and that'll be in the show notes, right?
Sweet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay,
I'll
cool.
include them there. Yeah.
Yeah, and Corinna Wood, if you're looking for that, is spelled with two N's and one R, CORINNA. CorinnaWood.com.
Do people mess that up a lot?
Yeah.
A lot of people think I'm Mason Hutchinson, but I'm Mason Hutchison. So yeah,
Oh,
I feel your pain.
Hutchison.
Yep, yep.
Okay, yes,
Kind of an alternative
IOIC.
spelling.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
Awesome. Well, we will include links to all of that in the show notes. Um, well, you also have another course coming up. Well, I want to say it's probably in addition to the free seminar you're hosting. It's called The Year's Spiral, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, but why don't you go a little more in depth about what that's all about?
Sure. Yeah. So at the end of the seminar, we'll be opening enrollment for the year's spiral, and that will be going over the entire year. So the course of the seasons, starting with material about imbolc, and then spring equinox and May Day or Beltane and summer solstice, all the way through winter solstice. So for each of the 8 seasons, there's 4 areas of study, 4 lessons. So the first is on that particular season. So starting with the imbolc one, that's halfway between winter solstice and spring equinox. That's like Candlemas, also known as Groundhog's Day today. It's like that. Is the winter going to end? And like it can be a time where those needs for safety and survival and security are up. So the first lesson, we look at how your inner landscape is reflected through nature's lens and the flavor of that particular season and some of the like earth-based roots of what's naturally happening around with the plants and the earth at that time of year. And then in the second one, we do a self-healing ritual. And so you have the instructions, and I'll talk you through and demo doing a ritual for self-healing that is engaging the energy of that particular season. And then the third one is an herbal ally for the season. So that's a lot of fun.
Of
And then in the
course.
fourth one, we dive deeper into some of this inner growth and healing.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say you've done this at least for the past couple years, and it sounds like you
Mm-hmm.
kind of open a new cohort once per year. So if
Yes.
folks are interested, it's only available for like a limited time, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Enrollment is actually open just for a few days. It's less than a week once we open the doors.
How are folks responding to the course, say from previous years?
Yeah. It's been so fun to hear the feedback and to watch the women's lives shifting and changing and growing. So I'm just actually going through some feedback right now, and women are talking about like a new job, a move to a new house, a new relationship, deepening their existing relationships with their husband, with their children, with their or family of origin, just showing up in so much healthier ways for themselves through doing this inner growth and healing exploration of really recognizing how our inward landscape is reflected through the outward cycles of the earth and the year and nature.
Yeah, I just want to commend you, Corinna. Like, I know you've been through a lot of hardship and PTSD over the years, and I love that you're an herbalist, but you're doing this deeper work and you're sharing with all of the women out there ways to help heal themselves as well. You're doing such important work, and I just love that you took your growth and now you get to share it with the world and teach other women how to do the same.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I did one of the women that I know is a big fan of you is my auntie Tracy. Hi Tracy. And
Hi, Tracy.
she has a it was funny, I was telling you this before, but she's like, "Oh, have you heard of Corinna Wood?" She emailed me this. I was like, "Funny you ask. I'm interviewing her in a couple weeks." So it kind of worked out that way, and I asked her if she wanted to ask a guest question. And so Tracy asks, "As we get older, we have value in our years, but we're no longer seen in the same way. We could become sort of invisible. How do you take on being an herbal crone with that in mind?"
Yeah, I love that question, Tracy. Thank you for bringing that. There is such a tendency toward ageism, especially toward women, with all the messages of how you're supposed to look. And then it's like such a complete distraction to like have so much time and energy of women ourselves going to like trying to fight the body's natural aging process and look like something that we're not. So that aside, as far as our own relationship with ourselves and stepping into those roles in the community, um, I mean, two things pop to mind. Of course, in the wise woman tradition, that's all about honoring the wisdom of our elders, the shoulders on who we stand. And so doing that for ourselves, of course, a lot of women enjoy circling with other women in that older age group and in crone circles and that kind of thing. And also, I mean, I kind of say this to the younger women who may be listening,
Hmm.
that I really recommend connecting with older women. In my late 30s and early 40s, I made a big effort and a decision like, I need some crones in my life. And so really, I don't know where I would be without them. I mean, like you said, I've been through a lot and have been able to synthesize a lot, which is also standing on the shoulders of the women who came before me. And I really think that the ageism of our culture that keeps us separated from each other is it's kind of like how competition between women in general is a construct of the patriarchy that keeps us separated from each other. And the ageism is as well. And then it's harder to gain the wisdom of the synapsing of the brain that's happening over the generations of women. And so really learning from the generations that come before us and then taking it to the next level, such a powerful tool. So yeah, if I had like another me, I have this this fantasy that I would create a like app for younger women to connect with older women, not like romantically,
I
not
love it.
dating, but
Yeah.
kind of like a dating app. So like, shared interests or that kind of thing. And
I
there's a
love
lot
that
of other
idea.
ways to do it without apps, even just what are the offerings of older women in your life? What are they teaching? What are they putting out there? Because of course we also want it to be reciprocal. And sometimes those personal relationships, can be reciprocal in other ways. Like, what are her needs? Is it maybe you're more tech savvy and so you can help in some ways or have more contacts or firewood or helping in the garden or even just listening to her stories, which is so educational. I mean, it has been so educational for me. And then I know that for I had a time where I had like three elder midwife crone herbalist women that were in my life and just relied so much on them. And it's really moving from the patriarchal paradigm of ranking ourselves in relation to other women to linking with one another the wise woman way.
Thank you for sharing. And yeah, Tracy, I just want to let you know I love you. You've been very influential in my life, and I really appreciate having your crone energy around. And I'm bummed I'm not in Oregon anymore to hang out as much as we can anymore. But yeah, you've been very influential on me. So thanks for the question, Tracy. And
Thank
thank
you, JC.
yeah, thank you for the answer, Corinna. Why don't we chat a little bit about imbolc since that's the season we're in right now? I was just we were talking about the years spiral, and you don't have to like delve into the full thing that you talk about in the course or whatever. But I'm just wondering if you have any favorite ways to say celebrate imbolc or any particular rituals that you could share with the audience.
Yeah. So imbolc is this time of year where, as I mentioned, where we're naturally feeling some uncertainty or vulnerability around, like if you look at ancient people, it's the food stores would be running low, the candles, we've been burning them over the winter. And so really allowing ourselves to turn that attention inward and assess, like, where am I feeling? So some self-reflective questions could be, where am I feeling vulnerable? What do I notice around my needs for security and safety at this time. And that can often be emotionally, as well as physically. And that's all really natural. And then asking yourself, what can I do for myself to nourish in this season? And also potentially in this time as I'm moving into this year. So I tend to do more of my like New Year's resolution kind of things
Oh, cool.
around imbolc.
Hmm.
So you don't need to rush into it, or if you didn't do them in January, don't worry. And really trying to do it from a place of loving and honoring and nourishing yourself rather than a place of demands and pressure and productivity. So, lighting a candle, writing with a journal, maybe bringing in something from outside. I often I have a sweet birch tree outside, and I like to nibble on the bark because it has this wonderful minty evergreen wintergreen aroma. So I like to make a little vase of just those bare twigs at this time of year, light my candle by that, just honoring this season, which isn't the season of flowers and leaves and all of that. It's really the season where we see the skeleton of the land and of the trees and of our own inner selves as well.
Thank you for sharing. And to learn more, again, there'll be links in the podcast show notes. Definitely check out the Year's Spiral, along with a free seminar that Corinna's hosting. So awesome. Well, I have a personal question for you. I've always been kind of curious about this, how this went for you. You created, I want to say, you founded one of the largest or the largest herb conference that I had ever heard of. And I was the events coordinator for Mountain Rose Herbs for 11 years. And I want to say, I'm just pulling this number out of nowhere, but I want to say it was like 1,500 to 2,000 people attended this conference in Asheville. It was the Southeast Wise Women Herbal Conference. You also, I want to say, founded Red Moon Herbs as well, also based in Asheville. And then, yeah, and that's kind of how I thought of Corinna Wood. Oh, the Red Moon Herbs person and the Southeast Wise Women person. And then one day you decided, I don't know if it was at the same time or not, but you moved on from both, presuming you sold both of them. And I'm just kind of curious, what was the decision for moving on? Is it to do this work? Is it the stage of your life? What's the story behind that?
Mhm. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had started to teach this modality of turning the wise woman lens toward your inner growth and healing. And so that had expanded. I had been teaching herbal classes since I was in my early 20s. So it's 30 years now. And as I started working with other women with these tools for inner growth and healing that had been so transformational in my life, and I was just over the moon about getting my health and sanity back, like physically and emotionally. And then seeing this unfold for my students, it just really, through my menopausal metamorphosis, it became clear to me that I needed to devote my time full time to teaching and writing and really bringing this work out into the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a process of honing Red Moon Herbs. I had actually sold the company 6 years before I did have the clear call through the menopausal metamorphosis to shut down the wildly popular Southeast Wise Women Herbal Conference, which it also was really interesting timing because I announced it prior to the pandemic, like 6 months prior, but then everything shut down. So there we go.
Good timing. Yeah. Menopausal metamorphosis. I like that. I'm a big alliteration fan. Did you coin that, or is that a
No, that's a Susan Weed one.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. I dig it.
Love
Awesome.
it.
Well, Corinna, I always just really appreciate your thoughtfulness. You're such a just very deep thinker, and I always appreciate, chatting with you. So it's been very informative for me and inspiring. I'm going to keep going on my self-care journey here, and just Just wondering if you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up and get out of here.
Yeah, I'd like to just acknowledge and honor and thank you for your interest and openness as an herbal fella in this deep work for inner growth and healing for women, and to just honor the herbal community and how much we have as a community matured and grown over the last 3 decades that I've been watching. And of course, that's on the shoulders of so many decades and different cultures and races that have come before. And I'm really grateful to be in this place where I'm able to bring these tools that, yeah, come through the herbal and natural lens and inspiration to support and nourish the teachers and leaders and herbalists and therapists and midwives and healers who have been putting it out for so long and so much, and just seeing the power in women's lives of really getting clarity and power through these tools that are just reflecting our innate psychology and nature's cycles. So yeah, yay to herbalism and to all that it brings for us to continue to deepen our understanding of our inner world as well as the outer growing green things.
Such a great way to wrap up. And I just want to say, dear listener, if you're kind of like a budding herbalist, take Corinna's example, share your gifts with the world. She does it so much and so freely. And yeah, I just think you're an inspiration, Corinna. And I really want the budding herbalists to get out there and also learn to share their gifts, their trials and tribulations with the world and everything like that. So thanks for joining me on the show, Corinna.
Thank you so much, Mason. And yeah, I look forward to seeing y'all over at the seminar on self-healing, the Wise Woman Way. Bye-bye for
Awesome.
now.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Herb Rally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at Herb Rally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from Herb Rally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.